Okay, let's unpack this. Imagine for a second that the most powerful engine for change isn't some, massive program or impressive platform,
Right.
but something far more subtle, something maybe hidden in plain sight. What if it's actually found within just a single specific relationship?
That really grabs you, doesn't it? It forces us to pivot from our usual way of thinking, the big plan, the grand strategy,
Yeah.
and look for something, well, much more organic.
Absolutely. And that intriguing idea is exactly what we're diving into today. We're exploring a concept known as the person of peace.
Mm.
It's a principle that, according to the material we've gathered, is incredibly powerful for sparking movements and driving transformation, yet it's often completely overlooked.
Yeah, and this deep dive pulls from a really rich collection of sources. We've got research, articles, personal notes, all sort of grappling with this idea.
Okay,
We'll
great.
trace its biblical roots, explore how it shows up in real-world movements today, and critically dig into where people most commonly get it wrong.
Our goal in this deep dive is to really distill the most important nuggets from all this material. We want to help you grasp not just the definition of a person of peace,
Right.
but why this concept is so vital right now, how you might actually, spot one, and the crucial mistakes to avoid that can completely derail this whole approach.
Yeah.
Ultimately, it's about learning to see where God is already at work, identifying the specific individuals he's prepared, and, well, joining his movement that's already in motion.
So let's start right there. At its heart, what is this person of peace or papapia concept?
Okay, so the core idea drawn from these sources is that it's about finding someone specific, not just anyone who's receptive or friendly, though that's, part of it.
Sure.
It's about someone God has already been preparing, someone who is genuinely receptive to the message you carry, whatever that might be, whether it's the gospel, a vision for community change, or just a new idea. And here's the critical part. This person also has significant relational influence within their network or community.
And this isn't some new strategy someone just invented.
Mm-hmm.
The material points straight back to the instruction Jesus gave the 72 disciples in Luke chapter 10.
Yeah, Luke 10.
He told them, when entering a town or house, to offer peace. And if a person of peace is there, their peace will actually rest on them.
Rest on them, right.
It's presented not as a command to just find any house, but to discern where God had already prepared the ground and the people.
Right. And this really flips our typical approach. We tend to start with the what? What's our plan? What's our program?
The strategy first.
Exactly. But the PAP principle, as we're seeing it in these sources, insists we start with the who. Whom has God already prepared?
Yeah.
It's about intentionally aligning ourselves with the prior, often unseen work of the Spirit.
And that's why these individuals are seen as strategically vital, not just, nice people to know.
Right.
Because of their existing relational influence, they hold keys to connecting with families, communities, even entire networks. The material describes them powerfully as the first domino.
The first domino, I like that.
Yeah, the one person whose genuine transformation can trigger this cascading effect outwards.
It paints a picture of like a divine pattern that repeats throughout history. God often prepares people before sending us.
Right. Prepares the way.
Yeah. Our task, as the sources suggest, is to prayerfully and humbly knock, not trying to batter down doors,
No.
but discerning which ones the Spirit has already opened, just a crack, inviting us in.
And this concept, it feels particularly relevant, almost urgent in our world today.
How so?
Well, we're navigating this era defined by, hyper-acceleration, just overwhelming information.
Information overload.
Totally. And rapidly shifting expectations where people deeply value authenticity, purpose, and real connection.
And the sources are really clear.
Yeah.
In this landscape, understanding and leveraging relational dynamics isn't optional anymore.
No.
It's what separates those who can truly catalyze change from those who just get left behind. Ignoring this relational insight is, well, frankly, a recipe for obsolescence.
Because in this fast-paced, often overwhelming environment, relying solely on rigid programs or external strategies, it can leave you feeling constantly behind or inflexible.
Right. Always playing catch-up.
Exactly. But by focusing on genuine relationships and identifying these prepared people, you build something far more resilient, adaptable, and capable of evolving in real time. It anchors your efforts in authentic connection, not just structure.
It's fascinating, too, how this pattern isn't just some modern idea. We see echoes of this divine strategy woven throughout the biblical narrative.
Absolutely. God consistently works by calling or encountering a person who then becomes the bridge to reach a people.
It ripples out.
It ripples out from one. Think about the Samaritan woman in John chapter 4.
Okay, yeah.
She was, by social standards, an outcast, right? Yet her encounter with Jesus wasn't just personal. She was so transformed that she immediately ran back to her village, her network, and brought many to meet Jesus. Her individual transformation sparked a village-wide awakening.
Wow. Or consider Lydia in Philippi in Acts 16. Paul meets her by the river, kind of outside the city gates.
Right, not in the main square.
No. And she's a businesswoman, a person of influence and faith. She opens her home, and this gathering place becomes the birthplace of the church in Philippi.
It starts with one key person.
And her sphere of influence.
Yeah. We see it again with Cornelius' household in Acts 10. Peter is sent to one man.
Just one.
But salvation and the Spirit fall not just on Cornelius, but on his entire household.
The whole family.
The whole group. And Zacchaeus in Luke 19, Jesus specifically calls him down from the tree, chooses his house.
Steals him out.
Leading to Zacchaeus' personal repentance and this profound shift affecting his whole household.
Even Rahab in the Old Testament functions like this. Her individual choice, her relationship, becomes the means of salvation for her entire family.
Exactly. Each story from these sources beautifully illustrates God already active in hearts we might least expect.
Often overlooked.
Definitely overlooked. And leveraging existing relational structures to advance his purposes. It's a powerful picture of God's preemptive grace, already working.
And this principle, it's not just ancient history. It's absolutely at work in powerful ways in modern movements happening right now all around the globe.
Oh, yeah. The sources share some really compelling contemporary examples.
Like what?
Well, there's the story of the India tea stall evangelist. A disciple maker didn't come in with some ready-made program, but simply built a genuine relationship with a local tea vendor. Just hung out, built trust.
Relationship first.
Exactly. And as that trust grew, the vendor felt comfortable sharing the stories he heard about Jesus with his customers while serving chai.
Just naturally.
Yeah, naturally. Because of his established place and credibility in the community, these Discovery Bible study groups began forming among his regulars, emerging organically from trust and relationship, not some formal training session.
That's amazing.
Then there's the powerful account of the African woman who couldn't read. She heard the gospel, and though literate, she began simply retelling the Bible stories she'd learned. Just telling stories.
Simple storytelling.
But her community knew her, they trusted her integrity, her simple relational sharing based on her credibility rather than, education.
Yeah.
It catalyzed a network of house churches across several villages within just 2 years.
2 years. Incredible.
And the story of Zara, the village weaver in Southeast Asia, really encapsulates this. A mission team had worked for a long time trying different programs.
With little result.
Minimal results. The breakthrough happened through what they called a providential encounter with Zara. She wasn't seeking them out, but she had this deep spiritual hunger and, crucially, immense relational currency in her village.
People trusted her.
People respected her. Her home was a natural gathering spot. So a team member started sharing Bible stories with her. She internalized them and felt compelled to open her home.
Just like Lydia.
Just like Lydia. Her personal transformation became a public platform, not some private possession. Her family followed. Then neighbors began leaning in.
Wow.
Within 2 years, a decentralized house church network was thriving, entirely led by locals.
Led by locals, that's key.
Totally key. What these modern stories underscore, aligning with the biblical pattern, is that these movements weren't built on the most strategic plans or the most charismatic outsiders. They emerged from aligning with God's work through prepared, relationally influential people. It's that combination of trust, truth, and transformation, finding fertile soil in the right person.
Okay, so if it's not just about headcounts or the number of groups started, what does person of peace success actually look like, according to this material?
Right. How do you know?
Yeah, how can you tell if you've truly identified and are working with a poppy in this catalytic way?
Well, the sources move beyond those simple metrics and point to deeper indicators. The first sign, and maybe the most crucial, is genuine transformation.
Okay. What does that mean?
We're talking holistic change, impacting the person's inner life, their character, their relationships, even their physical well-being and place in the community.
So whole life changed.
Exactly. It looks like lives visibly changing, people growing in love, patience, forgiveness, serving others.
Got it.
One powerful example cited is a Pop family whose newfound faith actively brought reconciliation among feuding relatives in their community,
Wow.
sparked care for local orphans, and made their home this welcoming, safe space for people to gather.
That's a picture of faith really impacting the whole person in their immediate sphere, isn't it?
Absolutely. Another key indicator mentioned is spiritual fruitfulness.
Okay.
This isn't just about attending something. It's about the Papi and those influenced by them actively growing in obedience to what they learn.
Right, applying it.
Developing a prayer life, deepening their understanding of the message, and crucially, starting to disciple others and even initiate new gatherings or groups themselves, organically.
So multiplication, but organic.
Organic multiplication. An urban Pop woman is highlighted who, after embracing Christ, naturally began teaching neighbors, organizing prayer, and mentoring newer believers. Her own growth directly fueled multiplication.
Building on that influence, I guess you'd see relational influence and community impact.
Exactly. Pops are often natural bridge builders. Success is evident when they are leveraging their trust to bridge divides, help heal cultural wounds, and actively work towards reconciliation and justice within their community.
So it moves beyond the individual.
Way beyond. The example of a Pop family in a conflicted urban area whose character and faith led to tangible reconciliation and community projects like working together to improve local safety or rebuilding trust.
That's powerful.
That shows this isn't just about personal piety, but broader societal good.
And vitally, there's sustainability through empowerment and local ownership. That feels huge.
It is huge. This is often the sign that something real and lasting is happening. Success means the movement isn't dependent on outsiders anymore.
Right.
Local leaders, often the Pops themselves, are shaping the work. Outsiders shift from being directors to coaches, mentors, facilitators.
Supporting, not leading.
Exactly. A powerful example from Asia describes a team intentionally transitioning from leading meetings to coaching local Papi leaders who then adapted methods to their own culture.
Context is key.
Resulting in genuinely sustainable, culturally resonant growth. It becomes their movement.
And tied directly to that must be self-replicating discipleship.
Yes. This is where the Pop principle really ignites. New believers don't just become consumers of teaching, they become producers.
Makers, not just takers.
Perfectly put. Actively making disciples themselves and, just as they were found, identifying their own persons of peace. It's about investing relationally, not just disseminating information.
So the cycle continues?
The cycle continues. The story of a remote village Pop sharing with a close friend, who then shares with a neighbor, sparking this chain reaction that led to multiple house churches, all led by locals. That's a vivid illustration.
There's also cultural resonance. You mentioned adapting methods.
Yeah, this is critical. The message or vision shouldn't feel alien or imposed. Success means the gospel or the idea is being expressed authentically within the local culture.
Using their language.
Using indigenous language, customs, stories, social structures as natural bridges. Avoiding cultural imperialism is key here.
Makes sense.
The sources point to a movement where they intentionally shifted to using indigenous melodies, proverbs, and allowing leadership structures to reflect traditional respected roles after a culturally sensitive Pop emerged.
And finally, perhaps the most encompassing indicator you mentioned, kingdom evidence or shalom.
Yes, shalom. It isn't just personal peace, it's that rich Hebrew term meaning wholeness, completeness, harmony, flourishing in all relationships.
With God, self, others.
And creation. Success at this level means the transformation is impacting families, bringing reconciliation to broken relationships, challenging oppression, fostering justice.
Wow.
The Pop family, whose integrity eased long-standing clan mistrust, led to reconciliation and helped young people find purpose. That's the community itself beginning to experience a taste of God's wholeness breaking in.
Hearing all those indicators of success, it's easy to get excited and think, okay, this Poppy thing is the magic bullet.
Right. Let's just find one.
Exactly. But the sources are equally clear, maybe even more emphatic, about the pitfalls.
Oh, yeah.
The surprisingly common missteps that occur when this principle is misunderstood or applied clumsily. These aren't just warnings. They sound like painful lessons learned in the field.
Definitely. A major theme weaving through many misfires is simply rushing and impatience.
Rushing it.
Which frequently manifests as premature multiplication. One classic mistake highlighted is politeness mistaken for peace.
Okay. Tell me more.
In many cultures, warm hospitality is a deep-seated social obligation. It feels like openness, but it's not necessarily spiritual readiness.
Right. It's just good manners.
Exactly. The Luke 10 test Jesus gave is key here. Does the offered peace rest on the house, indicating a prepared heart, or does it return to you?
Does it stick or bounce back?
Pretty much. Pushing a program like immediate Bible studies solely based on initial politeness can disrupt the social balance and burn bridges fast.
That's exactly the caution in the story about the team who kept pushing studies on Mr. Chen in Asia, who was just being polite.
Right. Or the North Africa team who learned the hard way that initial friendliness didn't equal a person of peace.
Oh.
They had to be patient and discern the genuinely responsive person later on. Took time.
And this impatience often comes from treating the poppy concept like strategy as a formula, you think?
I think so, reducing it to a checklist or a linear process aimed at rapid results. This leads back to pushing programs onto someone like Mr. Chen.
Instead of listening.
Instead of discerning where the spirit is truly at work, receptivity is a spectrum, and the sources stress that genuine transformation needs to precede sustainable multiplication.
This danger of impatience, especially under pressure for quick numbers,
Yeah.
it often results in fragile groups that don't last, right? And burnout.
For sure. Deep burnout for the people trying to force it. While the Urban Africa Microfinance Program had other issues, like selecting a leader with charisma but no deep relational roots,
Right.
it underscores how pressure for speed over deep connection leads to instability. Jesus' model was slow, deep investment, 3 years with a small group.
Yeah, not exactly rapid scaling.
No. Discipleship and finding pops requires time and patience.
Another critical area of misfire seems to be just ignoring culture and context.
Huge. As
Yeah.
one source puts it bluntly, passion isn't enough.
Ouch.
Yeah. Zeal can unfortunately lead to cultural blindness, causing outsiders to inadvertently disrespect or bypass crucial cultural dynamics like the role of elders or existing hierarchies.
Got an example?
The story from Latin America is a classic. A team found an enthusiastic young man, Miguel, who seemed open and bold.
Sound good so far?
Yeah, but he lacked cultural influence and respect from the elders in his community. His energy, seen through the local cultural lens, came across as arrogant,
Yeah.
creating division rather than unity. A true papi needs both receptivity and genuine respect and credibility within their specific context.
That Latin America story really illustrates how vision can outpace wisdom, doesn't it?
Totally. Moving too fast, trying to scale quickly without deep cultural discernment or understanding who truly holds influence.
Right.
The Urban Africa example comes up again here. A charismatic pastor seemed ideal on the surface, but lacked the relational rootedness and cultural fluency needed to connect with and empower the real community leaders.
So, right message, maybe, but wrong messenger in that context.
Exactly. Wrong messenger, or at least a messenger lacking the right kind of credibility. And the movement stalled. Fast scaling often builds shallow roots that just can't withstand challenges.
And this brings us back again to hospitality's double-edged sword.
Yeah, it keeps coming up. Failing to spend the time to understand whether initial warmth is genuine spiritual openness or simply cultural politeness,
And then pushing too fast.
and then pushing a spiritual agenda too quickly, it severely damages the very trust you need to build. It's counterproductive.
The final category of missteps often seems to stem from a wrong mindset and control.
This includes simple program-centric thinking.
Like focusing on the what again?
Exactly. Teams get so focused on implementing their agenda that they stop listening and discerning where God is already working.
Tunnel vision.
Total tunnel vision. The team pushing their program on Mr. Ken in Asia, referenced earlier, was so task-driven they completely missed the subtle spiritual stirrings happening elsewhere in the village.
Oh, wow.
Among people God had actually prepared.
This leads to the subtle chains of control, you think?
It can, yeah. There can be a fear among outside teams of truly relinquishing leadership, stifling the emergence of indigenous ownership.
Hard to let go sometimes.
It is. But as Psalm 127.1 reminds us, unless the Lord builds the house, those who build it labor in vain.
Good reminder.
The sources contrast external teams who try to maintain control, which prevents adaptation and sustainability, with those who empower local leaders, resulting in thriving, contextually relevant movements. Control, even well-intentioned, can be a major impediment.
And tragically, it can manifest as transactional engagement. That sounds bad.
It is bad. This is treating potential pops not as beloved children of God, but as targets or means to an end.
Just a stepping stone.
Yeah, someone you engage with only to get to their network. Reducing the gospel or your vision to a simple formula to be delivered It just damages genuine trust.
Right. People feel used.
They do. The sources draw a stark contrast between teams focused on transactional approaches versus those who prioritized building genuine, non-conditional friendship first, allowing trust to grow naturally.
And underlying many of these pitfalls seems to be a profound lack of humility.
Absolutely. As Philippians 2 illustrates with Christ, humility is essential for missional effectiveness.
Yeah.
Arrogance, clinging rigidly to pet strategies, dismissing local wisdom or perspectives, these contrasts between teams are clear in the material. Humble teams learn, adapt, and see God work,
And the others.
while arrogant ones stumble and falter. Humility isn't just a virtue. According to this material, it's a gateway to discernment and empowerment.
So the good news in all this, then, is that misfires aren't necessarily final failures.
No, not at all.
If we're willing to learn from them, they become powerful invitations for recalibration, deep reflection, and a return to those foundational biblical principles we discussed.
Exactly. The importance of reflection isn't just about reviewing data. It's presented as a fundamental spiritual posture,
Posture. How so?
requiring humility, acknowledging the limits of our own wisdom, and intentionally returning to that first love of listening deeply to the Spirit's leading.
Okay.
The sources draw a powerful parallel to Peter after his denial. His course correction came not through self-recrimination, but through a reflective, restorative encounter with Jesus.
That's a helpful image. The story of Mark and his team after their initial struggle with the program-driven approach and Mr. Chen. That sounds like a good illustration.
It is. Their failure prompted them to embrace reflection.
Mm-hmm.
They had honest debriefings, actively sought seasoned mentors,
Got outside perspective.
yes, and engaged in prayerful, humble study of Luke 10. Again, not looking for steps this time, but seeking to understand the divine preparation, the meaning of the peace resting.
Seeking the why behind it.
Exactly. This process completely recalibrated their mission focus.
And the sources outline key pillars that emerge from such reflective course correction.
They do. First, honest assessment. Just facing reality head on without making excuses or trying to spin failures.
Brutal honesty.
Sometimes, yeah. Second, cultural listening. This means going beyond surface conversations to engaging in ethnographic listening.
Ethnographic, what's that?
Deeply observing, participating, asking questions to understand the underlying needs, fears, values, hopes of a community in a way that surveys or quick visits can never reveal, really immersing yourself.
Got it. Going deeper.
Third, praying for discernment. This is absolutely critical. It's about actively and persistently seeking God's guidance through prayer.
Not just guessing.
No, relying on the Spirit's revelation about where He is working and who He has prepared, rather than relying solely on human methods or intuition.
Okay.
And fourth, empowering ownership. Consciously and deliberately shifting from controlling the work to equipping, mentoring, and releasing local leaders.
The pups and those they influence.
Exactly, releasing them to truly own and shape the movement in their own context.
This entire journey, then, finding the person of peace, celebrating genuine success, learning from painful misfires, and engaging in deep reflection and recalibration, it's presented as the path towards fostering shalom.
Yeah, that comprehensive God-intended wholeness and flourishing we discussed earlier.
Right.
And this principle of relational engagement, moving from program-driven to relationship-driven, building trust-based influence, and truly empowering Indigenous leadership.
Yep.
It isn't limited to one sphere.
No,
it applies across ministry, business, community development, really, wherever genuine transformation is sought.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into the person of peace concept, the core takeaway from all these sources feels incredibly clear. This isn't some simple formula you apply.
Definitely not a formula.
It's an enduring wisdom, maybe a divine pattern rooted in God's own nature and way of working.
Yeah.
It's an invitation to align with His prior work, focusing your energy not on the biggest platform or the most impressive program,
Right.
but on discerning and investing in relational momentum and utterly trusting the Spirit to lead.
And remembering what real success looks like, not just numbers, but that profound holistic transformation. Spiritual fruitfulness, tangible relational influence, bringing shalom to a community, sustainable growth led by locals, and that multiplying chain of discipleship initiated by the prepared people themselves.
Okay, so final thought for you, the listener. Consider your own efforts right now, whether that's in your professional life, your community involvement, your relationships, or maybe something more explicit in your faith journey.
Yeah, think about where you're investing energy.
How might shifting your focus, just slightly, From prioritizing your plans or your programs to prayerfully seeking out and intentionally investing in just one receptive, relationally influential person God has already prepared.
Just one.
How might that unlock a greater, more resilient transformation than anything else you could do?
And perhaps the more challenging question that follows from that.
Go on.
What does that mean you might need to let go of? What strategies or efforts might you need to slow down or even stop altogether to free yourself to truly see and join what God is already building?